topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Atlanta. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show. Today's show is brought to you by Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta, who specialize in selling your business. Contact them today to set an appointment by calling Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta at 770-936-9099. Hey, we've got a great lineup today for all you home improvement people, all you homeowners. We're going to be talking about foundation repair. Very important topic, because if you don't take care of it now, it could cost you a lot of money later on. We've got one of probably the largest foundation repair companies in Georgia, Permajack Foundation Repair, and we have the owner of the Southeast area. We have Bobby Clanton with us today. Good morning, Bobby.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
We're doing well. I'm so glad you're with us today. We're talking foundation repair. And listen, I know so much now about Permajack from all the shows we've done. And we want to share this with our viewers and our listeners. Describe the difference between Permajack and other systems out there.
Well, Steve, for many years, that would be prior to 1973, I believe, when the system was patented. The only option you had was what we call shallow repairs. That is, if your foundation is settling, they'd come and dig out, pour more concrete and that kind of thing. But in 1972, when the system was patented, we came up with a hydraulically driven steel pier system that can extend the support piers down to, well, I think the deepest we've ever had is in the 90-foot range, but generally they are in somewhere between the 15 and 25-foot range, so we can get down to something that's undisturbed, which is really what you're looking at for proper support.
Does Permajack, do you only install piers?
No, we do all types of structural repairs. The pier business is the largest business. But we do structural repairs, like if people have, like they'll have an area they want to open up in their house and install the laminated beams to open it up for a kitchen or living room or whatever, and you have to, cut into the framing. We do that type of repair. We also do some grout injection where you've had voids under your slab, and we can pump sand cement mix onto there for that. But just any kind of structural repair. In Atlanta, we've actually had some cases where people have their decks built on the back of their house over these, it's kind of a mountainous area. So, and the decks will be 25 feet off the ground, and the supports they put in for them are not adequate. We've done some of that. So, just generally any kind of structural repair to commercial or residential buildings.
Bobby, if people do not take care, if they have a foundation problem and they don't get it taken care of, it's going to cost them dearly in the coming years.
Yes. You think about it this way, everything that you have that you actually enjoy about your house, the flooring, the different rooms, the colors, all these kind of things, they're all sitting on a foundation. And the building itself is only as good as what the foundation is and its performance. And so, yes. And to give you an example, when COVID came and there was an interruption in supply chains and those kind of things, our material costs have jumped 20 or 30% in that period of time. So we hope that that will go back. But if you wait too long, it just not only the cost of the individual piers, but if you let it go too long, you'll need more piers, and that's just it's just something that needs to be addressed if it's a structural problem.
One of the things that Permajack does, which is very unique, is your warranty. Let's talk about your warranty.
We have it's a limited lifetime warranty, which means it's limited to the area that we work in. But that lifetime warranty is against any kind of or any additional vertical movement of the areas that we repair. And that can be transferred to another owner. We have to be notified within 60 days of the title transfer. And the new owner has to sign the warranty, of course. But it transfers. And I think in the last 30 years, maybe 35 years, we've been in Atlanta, well, actually in Southeast, but also in Atlanta. Our callback rate's only been about 0.5%. We don't have much of this. So it is as close as you're going to get to a permanent repair.
What are some of the oldest warranties you're carrying?
I've got some that are I got some that are approaching 35 years now.
Wow.
So, I'm sure the house has changed hands a number of times, but we had one call actually over in Buckhead last year that we fixed in 1986 or something. I don't know. But to be honest with you, they said it was a fairly large repair. It was a brand new house and started settling before they even moved in. But anyway, we repaired that house and it's changed hands 2 times or 3 times. And they asked if we'd come out and if we would re-warrant it. And I said, well, they had in the old days, we had a 5-year extendable warranty, but the lifetime warranty started, I don't know, in the early 90s. And I said, yes, it'd be a charge for that as long as I did an inspection on it. I did the inspection and nothing had changed. And so we gave them a warranty. I don't know of anybody in this city that would do that but us.
You say, and I know what it means, but I want our viewers to know, you say that Permajack offers solutions, not just piers. Explain what that means.
Well, you can approach this business a couple of ways. Almost every job is different. And so to believe that piers would solve every individual problem before you go out is a little bit, it's not correct. So you have to almost design a solution or come up with a solution for each individual one. And they require different things. Piers, you may have a footing that's inadequate. And so you have to put additional steel beams under it. So we're really designing solutions more than we are just selling piers. Some people are able to just sell the piers like units, but we don't do that because we have to design the repair or come up with a repair based on in light of our warranty, because we can't fix something. I'm carrying, I believe at last count, 15 or 20,000 warranties for a lifetime.
Wow.
You can imagine what kind of liability that is if you did not do the work properly. And so,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it makes me wake up sometimes. But anyway,
yes.
But we don't have that much of that, so it's not a big deal. But it's value added, Steve. To be honest with you, you have to look at these things that you're asking about are add value to what we're selling, and we're not just selling piers. So that's the way it works.
I can just see somebody who's either watching us on TV right now or they're listening on the radio podcast going, what do I look for to see if I have some kind of foundation problems?
Well, generally, the first indication are cracks, and the cracks usually on houses with masonry with bricks on them, that usually shows up fairly quick because brick is fairly tensile, and so the least amount of settlement usually will cause a crack. You would see cracks in the drywall. You would see uneven doors that won't close, or they won't stay closed. They swing one way or the other. Windows the same way. We've actually seen enough settlement to where actually the glass in these window panes popped out of a window because the foundation was settling and squeezing the window and make it bow, and it gets to a certain point where the glass just pops out. Unlevel floors, cabinets, a lot of times cabinet tops. I'll give this to you. I'll tell you this: 80% of the calls that we get are from women.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, because the husbands. This is not talk about all the husbands because I am one, but I'm just saying husbands are not so concerned about as long as the house not falling down, they're okay. Right. I'm able to sit here in my Barco lounger and I don't see anything coming through the ceiling. But women identify more with the home because it is their home and that's the way they sit. So anyway, they can always tell. They got an unlevel cabinet top. They got cabinet doors won't close, doors that stick, those kind of things. And so any of those things are usually indicative of a foundation issue.
Now, you will come out and do a evaluation. Is that correct?
That's correct. We come out and look. The estimates are free. We actually cover the whole Southeast, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, northern Florida, and Tennessee, actually. And we cover that whole area, but in the Atlanta area, all of our quotes are free. The only thing that we charge for is if a person is wanting to buy a house and they don't own it, there's a charge for that because that's like an inspection.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and they have to pay for that, but the homeowner doesn't have to pay for us to look at it. And then we give them a quote on the site in about 95% of the cases. Unless it's a large repair that requires more time and a little more attention, we will take that back and give it to them within a couple of days. But almost all of our quotes are the same day.
Do you do other types of structural repairs, Bobby?
Yeah, we in Atlanta, for instance, we deal with a lot of basement walls. If you see your wall bulging in your basement, that is generally caused by high surcharge load of water in the soil on the outside. It means it did not have a proper drain put in at the bottom, or if it did, the drain is stopped up. But when that water load builds up, it can't actually push the wall in. We do those. We have some cases where once we repair the wall, we inject grout into the hollow parts of the concrete block, and we install rebar in it, which makes it almost like a concrete wall. And as I said earlier, we can grout some voids with grout, if it's just filling the voids. We don't use grout as a foundation repair, but we can do that kind of thing. Framing repairs, if you have if it wasn't framed properly, causing sags in the ceilings in your rooms, those kind of things, we do structural framing repairs. We don't just do woodwork, we do structural repair.
Inside and outside, Bobby?
Yes.
Okay. Describe, if you can, a typical inside repair.
Well, we're the only ones that can go inside. We can do conventional and slab. Now, conventional will be one that's on a wood floor that has a crawl space. If we have to take the piers inside, our equipment only requires 62 inches of head height in order to get it in. We can actually put these piers in on the inside, or we're the only ones with any system that can do that. We would go in, if it's a slab, we would go in, we cut out a hole about a foot and a half, and then we dig down, put our bracket under and drive our piers, clean up everything and pour back the concrete and so forth. We cover everything with plastic. We're about the only ones that actually can go inside. On a conventional, we can also put the piers on a conventional slab. We generally have to put them under an intersecting beam where the joist intersects. But yes, we can do both of those on the inside.
We just got a text message from a listener wanting to know what the difference between Permajack's warranty and other warranties.
Permajack's warranty is a vertical movement warranty, and that means that if you have settling, we fix it and it settles in that same place again, we repair it at no cost to the customer. The other warranties are material workmanship warranties. If you read what it says they have to, the homeowner would have to prove that there was a defect in material or workmanship before they will come back and correct it. That's not part of our warranty. Material workmanship is not even mentioned in our warranty. We basically just say that if a settlement occurs and we give the homeowner a drawing showing where their piers are and the warranted areas outlined in red so they know exactly where that is. And if they call us back and it's within that red and settled, then we repair it at no cost to them. There's nothing in there about material workmanship.
Okay, Michael's got a follow-up question. Is your warranties transferable?
They're transferable if the house is sold, as long as we're notified within 60 days of the title transfer. And
Okay.
then the new owner has to sign the same warranty as the previous owner.
God, when it comes to foundation repair, it sounds like such a huge job. How much disturbance is there with your system?
Well, actually, everything that we use can be carried by one or two men. We don't have any equipment in the yard, any of that kind of thing. Most all of the excavations to install these piers are done by hand. And so we don't have much disturbance at all. Generally, if there's landscaping in the way, we take it out and remove it and put it back. We just don't guarantee that it will live. The homeowner has to keep it watered while we're there. And but yeah, we put everything back like we found it. It's quite clean, actually, very little disturbance.
So they don't have to move out or anything for a few days?
No.
Wow, that's good to know. Can you adjust your system if you have to go back for a warranty repair?
Yes. Our system has it's a bracket with a threaded bolt that goes in the side of it. That bolt can just be backed out. We mount the cylinder that we drive the pipe with on top of that and then push it down further if it has to go. And then we re-thread the bolt and put it back in. So it's fully adjustable. Most of the other systems, I'm not aware of any of the rest of them that's adjustable. In the event that you have a problem, I'm not aware of any of them that can do that.
Bobby, tell people if they have a foundation problem and they don't take care of it, kind of like you're saying, the husband sits back unless the house is falling in. Tell people what they could be in store for.
Well, we've had actually some where people let them go so long, especially if you have a bathroom on an outside wall and that wall starts settling, then your plumbing starts reversing and you have trouble flushing your toilets, that kind of thing. And we've actually seen some of it where it actually pull the sewer line in two.
Right.
And people have to be careful also about where your power comes into your house. Usually that meter base is attached to the house and the high voltage wire come through that into your switch box. I've actually seen some of these that have gone so far that it started pulling that meter service off of the house and it can cause a fire. And so you just don't want that kind of thing to happen because if it settles, what's going to happen is the pipe that's in the ground is not going to move, that's got the electrical in it, and it will actually pull it out of the power box.
Oh, so, my gosh.
Yeah, you have to be careful about that kind of thing. We have a good bit of commercial business on apartments and things like that. And we try to explain to the owners of the apartments, you've got tenants in those apartments. And if you've got a door, and a lot of them are elderly, if you've got a door and that door is sticking and you have a fire on the inside and they can't get out, those things are, of course, having been in the business as long as we have, we're fairly knowledgeable about most of that kind of stuff. But those are all safety concerns. And waiting not only sometimes can be a safety concern, but it's obviously a cost concern. You don't want to, who knows where all this stuff is going to go? I don't
right.
know. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. If our steel prices come down, then we'll reduce our prices. But right now it's kind of a delay right now, but it has been a pretty large price hike up into the last few months.
Bobby, tell people, and we don't really commercialize this show. This is an educational show, and we're targeting homeowners and business owners as well. Tell people why they should hire your company.
Well, Steve, we've been in business, I believe, since 1984. I'm getting older, so I can't remember everything, but I know that I remember what my wife looked like, so I know her when I see her. Anyway,
Thank God for that. Kathy will appreciate that.
I think I know you. Anyway, we've been around since the early 80s, and we've got probably 100,000 of these piers in or so. Nationwide with other franchises, we've got over 250,000. Not us, but all the other franchises. But we have a lot of experience at this. Not only do we have experience with installing, but we've got experience with servicing and with the longevity of the repair. I mean, I've got some repairs that are 37 or 38 years old, and we still have those files. We keep the paper files, and we've got a room full of paper files on everybody that we've ever repaired. My sons and some of the other people in the office trying to get me to digitize all those, and I say, no, at my age, I have to see paper. I don't want, you can digitize me if you like, but I need the paper file. So people need to think about the fact that the depth of experience, both in the installation and in the warranty servicing part, we know what these piers will do. And so what we're selling based on facts, not on fiction.
Well, I got to tell you, I've heard, because we do the show across the country, and Permajack has got such a great, reliable name, and we are so blessed to have you on the show. Let's we've been running. If you're watching, you know that we've been running Permajack's phone number below. But Bobby, for those who are listening on radio, please give everybody your phone number.
Our Atlanta phone number, which covers all of Georgia, is 404-365-8339. That's 404-365-8339. That will get you to the young lady that handles all of Georgia and actually Alabama. But you can get that by calling her at that number.
Well, Bobby will be back with us again next month with more educational information on foundation repair. Bobby, we always appreciate having you on, and we will see you next month.
That's
we're
great.
Going to go to a slight break, and we come back. We have the Sunbelt business brokers on our show. Thanks again, Bobby.
Steve, thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. So that was Bobby Clanton. He's with Permajack. Ask the Expert Show is a show that we bring you the experts in legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We actually just got a new show coming up on personal injury that we're really excited about. And we've got another show coming up on different areas of dental, whether it's dental implants or whatever the case is. Our next show is going to be on selling your business and using a business broker to do that. It's extremely important that you don't try to sell your business yourself. It is the biggest headache. You have people calling your business up. You got employees you have to be worried about finding out that you are possibly selling your business. We're going to be talking about franchises today, resale of a franchise. And our expert is Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta. They actually do the second half of our show every week. We're waiting for Doreen Morgan to come on. There she is. Good morning,
Good
Doreen.
morning. How are you?
We're doing great. I was just
Good.
telling people about Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta. And today's going to be a great show today. We are talking about, and before we get started, I want to tell everybody today's show is brought to you by Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta. They specialize in selling your business. You can contact them today to set up an appointment by calling Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta at 770-936-9099. And today we're talking about selling a franchise resale. Doreen, tell everybody about Sunbelt.
Okay. Well, Sunbelt Atlanta has been based in Atlanta for 25 years. We are part of Sunbelt Network. So we are a network of 250 offices in 10 countries. So we've got boots on the ground just about anywhere where a buyer is going to be. We represent sell side. We sell Main Street businesses, which are going to be like franchise concepts and anything you would find on Main Street. So hardware stores, retail establishments, small manufacturing companies up through lower middle market. And lower middle market is going to be, companies that transact for up to about 75 million in transaction value. And our firm is 50% business brokerage and 50% mergers and acquisitions.
Well, let's get right to today's show. We're talking about selling a franchise resale. How are franchise resales valued?
They are valued a little bit differently than a Main Street business. So because most franchise concepts have a stronger name recognition than an independent location will, they do drive higher multiples, which, franchise owners love to hear that. And typically, if for example, a independently owned hardware store is going to trade for, a 2 or 2.5 time multiple, an Ace Hardware or a Do It Best will trade for 3 to 3.5 times multiple. Even though you're paying royalties, and franchise owners a lot of times will ask, well, should I wait until my franchise agreement is up before I go to market so I can take it to market as an independent, because then the royalties won't be there? No, you don't want to do that, because even though you're paying those royalties, the valuation is going to be higher as a franchise concept.
What types of buyers buy franchise concepts?
It is usually, more times than not, it's going to be what we like to call corporate refugees, people that are just tired of corporate America. They want to own their own company, their own business, but they don't want to be in business by themselves. They don't want to do a startup. Usually, it's people that are looking for an encore career. Sometimes, they've been in corporate America most of their lives. They've had kids to put through school, that kind of thing. And kids are gone, they're out of the house. And it's the first time in that person's life that they feel comfortable enough to kind of leave a steady paycheck and jump off into a business themselves. And franchising is a great way to do that, especially an existing, franchise. You're not working with a startup. You're buying an established business with established systems in place, and oftentimes a nationally recognized brand.
Doreen, I know franchises have a lot of guidelines that the owners have to go by. Does it make it harder to sell that business?
No, it usually does not, because even though a franchise owner or franchisor has guidelines, there are usually more people interested in franchising because they aren't building something from the ground up. The roadmap is there. So, the franchisor does have to approve the buyer that's going to buy that business. But typically, that buyer qualifies for the loan, then the same qualifications will be true of the franchisor. So that is part of it. And when we take a franchise resale to market, we are making sure we understand what the guidelines are for that franchisor, what their minimum net worth requirement is, what they consider to be transferable experience. And so when we take the company to market, we are screening the buyers to make sure they're going to meet those franchise requirements before we even send them information on the business. That way we're not wasting your time when you go to sell.
So you can't just sell it to anybody.
No, it's got to be somebody that's going to meet the requirements of the franchisor.
Now, let's talk about right of first refusal. Doesn't a franchise have to give the franchisor the right to a buyer for their business before they can take it to market? How does that work?
Well, the franchisor has right of first refusal, and this is a real confusing thing for a lot of franchise owners. The franchisor does have right of first refusal, but that right of first refusal doesn't come into play until there's an offer on the table. So depending on right, so they do have that option. And normally most FDDs, it'll be stipulated in there that they've got the right of first refusal. Oftentimes they've got usually we see 45 days to 60 days. They've got the right to exercise that option. Depending on the relationship with the franchisor, if you as a franchise owner, you think that your location or your territory, your geography is going to be something that the franchisor is going to be interested in acquiring, and you've got a good relationship with them, it might be something that you want to take to them first. And then, other times, if you're in a geography that's not saturated yet, it is usually better to go to market first and find the buyer first. If you are a founding franchisee, we really recommend you kind of want to go to market first, regardless of what kind of relationship you have with the franchisor, because a lot of times you'll see founding franchisors, the franchisees that were the first ones in the system. They might have extraordinarily large territories, or they might have royalty fees that when the franchisor was just starting out, they charged 2% royalty fees on the sale, and they didn't have in their original FDDs that new buyers would have to adhere to the new FDD. And so some of those FDDs are grandfathered in, and people can come in, keep those large territories, keep the 2% royalty. And so there's a little more value there. And those are situations where if a franchisor, and it's usually pretty rare that a franchisor actually exercises the right of first refusal, but if a franchisor is going to exercise that right of first refusal, it's usually in those situations because they can then get that geography back and chop it up into, into 3 new franchise locations, which is pretty common when a franchisor is first starting out. They give large territories, and then after they're 10 years in and have a little more knowledge and background about franchising in general, they go, wow, we really should have, that's a huge territory, and if I had to do it over again, that would be 3 territories. And so those are the situations where you see franchisors exercising that right of first refusal. And so it's better to take it to the open market because it's difficult to get fair market value for your franchise unless you take it to the market. So then we come in with the offer and present it to the franchisor, and they've got the 45 days or 60 days or whatever it is to exercise their right. But then they've got to match that offer.
We just had a text come in from a listener wanting to know if the franchisor with their guidelines ever kills a deal?
I have only seen that one time in my 20 years. And I came out of the franchise space before I went into general brokerage. I represented a large franchise concept with a holding company with five different concepts. So I did new development. I moved to the resale team for them when they had a large corporate owned holding that we sold off when private equity firm took us over, and all that time. So I've done lots and lots in the space. I've had one time where a franchisor said, that person, we're not going to let them in the system. And it was a background issue more than anything. Something had come up in his background that we wouldn't have seen when we screened, but they did background checks on people. And that was the only time that I've had a franchisor kind of throw a flag on the field. And we just went right back out to market. There's usually multiple buyers for franchise concepts.
How does a franchisor impact the sale of a franchise resale?
Well, having a franchise, like we had already talked about it, they do drive higher multiples. When it comes time to sell, a franchisor can really impact whether or not your business is going to be saleable based on upgrade packages is usually one of the most difficult things that we as intermediaries and advisors have to negotiate and manage. Oftentimes when you're ready to sell your franchise, you're coming into the end of your franchise agreement, or you are ready to retire. You haven't had to do upgrades necessarily, or you haven't always kept up with them. Sometimes franchisees aren't the greatest about keeping up with the latest, greatest updates that are sent out from the franchisor. And so the franchisor at the time of the sale can enforce that. They can come in and say, we've got new equipment packages and your equipment is not up to date. The decor is not up to date. The building specs are no longer up to date. So sometimes a franchisor can come in and say, we're not going to allow you to transfer this franchise until these upgrades are made. And it can be, $50, $70, $150,000 in upgrades. We did have a large franchise that they wanted a total remodel. It was closer to $200,000. And in those situations that we are, representing the seller, and our position is the seller is not going to benefit from those upgrades. So those upgrades are something that, in addition to paying what the value of your franchise resale is, they've got to come up with the money to make those upgrades. And we're usually always very successful in getting that done, because most franchise concepts, especially the larger ones, they're going to have case studies. They're going to know what those upgrades mean to that business. And kind of as a general rule of thumb, when a franchisee does the franchise required upgrades, it's going to increase sales on average of between 8 and 12%. So what we do is we work with the franchisor to kind of get those case studies, if they've got any of this available, or if there are franchisees that we can pull on for that information. Then we can go to the bank, because we're a full service firm. We are arranging financing. We're doing all of it. We'll get that in place. Oftentimes, before we find the buyer, we've got funding lined up, and we'll work with the bank to show them that these upgrades are important, and this is what it's going to mean to the business. This is what it's going to mean to the bottom line for the new owner. And more times than not, the upgrades are going to justify that the investment in those upgrades. And so usually if it's not a huge amount, then usually the upgrade requirement, the money that's going to be needed to make the upgrades, can be rolled into the loan. Sometimes we'll put together, work with the bank to put together an operating line of credit to do the upgrades, or it can be a separate loan altogether. But we're good at managing that, and it's good, but it can slow things down. It can hinder things, and so that's really the biggest impact a franchisor can have on that sale. On the good side, the valuations are higher. On the downside is, yes, those upgrades are going to have to be done.
We have a text message that came in. It said a lot of the franchisors want you to work in the store for a certain length of time. Is that negotiable?
Well, with the sale, the existing franchise operator will stay on to transition the business on the softer side of things, who the employees are, kind of how they operate, how they manage the financial side of the business. The franchisor is going to require that the buyer go through their training program. So when you buy a franchise resale, you're going to have the corporate training program that you're going to go through just like a new franchisee would. And then you will have the seller that will stay on and transition the business for a period of time. So the training's excellent when you buy a franchise. As far as actually working in the business for a period of time before the transaction, that is, that's really not something that most franchise concepts do. And they don't do that for a reason. They don't want to put you through their training programs and processes and give you, their operation manual and the keys to the kingdom and the recipes for the secret sauce
Right.
until you actually own the business. And so most franchise concepts don't do that. You close on the business first, then you go through training. We are seeing more franchisors want people to go through the corporate training program before the sale is finalized, but there's an asset purchase agreement in place. The funding is in place. For all intents and purposes, everything is done. The only thing that is not signed is that bill of sale. But they know it's going to close. Then they put the new franchisee through training before they let them actually take over the business with the franchisor. And that timing can be an issue there. If it's a franchise concept that only holds training classes 3 times a year, and the next one isn't until July, and we've got the buyer and it's ready to close in March, and the buyer has to sit on the sidelines and wait until July, that can be difficult, especially if it's someone that's already left corporate America or is looking to replace an income of some kind. To sit on the sidelines for 5 months can be difficult, and we can usually work through those situations with the franchisor. I think the only concept that I really actually know of off the top of my head that requires franchisees to work in the business is Chick-fil-A. And before they can own a store, they actually work at Chick-fil-A for 5 years to qualify.
Wow.
Yeah. So we don't see I've never sold a Chick-fil-A. We don't see those come to market because of that. Yep.
Wow. What are some of the top things that a person can do to maximize the value of the franchise resale?
Well, the first thing is, of course, have good books and records, which is the other nice thing about franchise concepts. Most of the time, due diligence is a little easier on the financial side because the franchisor has royalty reports that can help verify your information. But anytime you're selling a business, you want your books and records to be in as best shape as they can be. And then if if the franchise concept is requiring upgrades, and you know that you're out of date on your upgrades, and you're a year and a half or 2 years away from selling, really look at that and look at what those upgrades mean to the bottom line. And if on average stores that implement these upgrades drop 11%, increase revenue by 11%, that's can be a pretty significant amount to the bottom line. So it might make sense for you to spend the $25 or $50 or $75,000 to make those upgrades if you're 2 years out from selling. And the franchise system requires upgrades only once every 5 years or 7 years. If you're in that window, then you can really benefit from that. And it's something you kind of have to think about. Well, if I spend this $50,000, it's going to mean this to the top line, which is going to equate to this on the bottom line. And then I get a multiple of that. So, if you're spending $50,000 to increase the value of your company, they're sold on multiples. If it's going to increase the value of your sale and add another $250,000 or even $150,000 to that purchase price, that can be a good thing to do. And then, are there key employees in the business that could be groomed to kind of become a general manager type of person on the transition? Even if you don't make them a general manager before then, if you have somebody in the business that is interested in moving up, that would like to be groomed to do more in the business, that can be really valuable, because people that are buying franchise concepts, if it's somebody coming out of corporate America, and if the franchisor allows it, a lot of franchisors require owner operators. But if you're in a franchise system that allows some level of absentee ownership or multi-unit operators that don't need to be in the business day to day, it can be very valuable to have that person in your pocket that can step into the role when you leave, because somebody coming out of corporate America may not want to be an owner operator and be in the business every single day. They want to work on the business and not in it. And then also that's going to set you up for a multi-unit operator, because a lot of times people that own franchise concepts, if it's not somebody coming out of corporate America and owning a business for the first time, it's a multi-unit franchisee that owns, several Papa John's pizzas, and they might own, a 2 men in a truck. They own multiple non-competing franchises. So they're working on the business and not in it. And if you've got somebody in there that can step into that role and run the business, then it opens it up to more buyers.
We've been going through the show, and down at the bottom of the screen, it's been giving your phone number out. But for those who are listening on radio, please give them your phone number and your website address.
We can be reached at 770-936-9099. And our website is Sunbelt Atlanta, and Atlanta is spelled out, sunbeltatlanta.com.
Doreen is with us every week at around 10:25 every week. She's Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta, though the show reaches throughout Georgia now. And I'm sure you can contact Sunbelt also, even if you're outside the Atlanta area. Doreen, thank you so much for joining us today. Doreen will be back with us next week. We'll be talking about a different area of selling your business, Brokers of Atlanta. Thank you so much, Doreen.
Thank you. Have a good week.
And everybody, we will be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts, brought to you by the Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta. And we are so glad that we have them as our sponsor. You can reach them at 770-936-9099. We'll see you all next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.